We have a long history of free speech in this country. I'm very proud of that, and I'll always defend it. We're not censoring anyone. Free speech is one of the founding values of the United Kingdom, and we protect it jealously and fiercely, and always will. Not my words, but the words of our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. Hollow words. This is the story of how Sir Keir prosecuted people for jokes, and recent further legislative restrictions on speech we face here in Britain. My name's Tom Harwood, and this is GB News Originals. Be sure to click that subscribe button. Now, let's dive straight in. How many lies can the Prime Minister tell before breakfast? One of Sir Keir's favourite refrains is to claim, without evidence, that Britain enjoys free speech, that we have done for a long time, and that he, personally, will always defend it. He's said a variation of that line time and time again, particularly in the presence of Donald Trump. And somehow, he always gets away with it. Standing at his podium alongside the President of the United States yesterday, Mr. Starmer revealed where he believes free speech ends. He said, "I draw a limit between free speech and the speech of those that want to peddle paedophilia and suicide on social media to children." Now, to most of us, that sounds entirely reasonable. Examples of real-world action, incitement, if you will. But does this Prime Minister's history, or indeed current government policy, align with these hard and widely reasonable limits that he set out in front of the world's media? Well, unfortunately for our Prime Minister, I've kept receipts. Yes, as Director of Public Prosecutions, a man who was then known merely as Mr. Keir Starmer QP, reportedly stopped his staff dropping its case against a man named Paul Chambers, author of a joke on Twitter about blowing up Doncaster Sheffield Airport. Let's go back to early January 2010, when what was then known as Robin Hood Airport cancelled its flights due to bad weather. In light of heated frustration, Chambers tweeted to his 600 followers, "Crap, Robin Hood Airport is closed. You've got a week and a bit to get your together, otherwise I'm blowing the airport sky high," with 2 exclamation marks. Well, police arrested him while he was at his workplace. Keir Starmer's Crown Prosecution Service had decided to charge him with sending a message of a menacing character, an offence under Section 127 of the Communications Act 2003. Fast forward 4 months later, and he was found guilty at Doncaster Magistrates Court. He was fined £385. He was ordered to pay £600 in costs, and he lost his job. It didn't matter that the airport in question considered the message to be not credible as a threat. It didn't matter that no one in this process considered Paul Chambers to be remotely terroristic. No, Mr. Starmer's CPS prosecuted Chambers not for making a credible threat, not for inciting violence, not for any speech test that would lead to real-world harm, but instead for speech that could merely be interpreted as menacing. Chambers then lost an appeal against his conviction at Doncaster Crown Court. It was only after a second High Court appeal that he was able to beat back Starmer's CPS with the help of some of the most expensive QCs in the land. Needless to say, not all speech criminals achieve the level of publicity, sympathy, and support that Chambers was able to garner through his 2.5-year ordeal. The Communications Act 2003 has continued to criminalise speech that would be considered completely legal in a freer society. Yes, the Robin Hood Airport incident was far from isolated.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
A Scottish YouTuber known as Count Dankula taught his girlfriend's pug to raise its paw in the manner of a Nazi salute in response to the phrase, "Do you want to guess the Jews?" Dark? Yes. Comedy? Questionable. Offensive? Certainly. And that's where he went wrong. Under the Communications Act 2003, it's illegal to post grossly offensive communications. In April 2018, Dankula, whose real name is Mark Meechin, was fined £800 for his video. Another Scot, called Joe Kelly, tweeted, "The only good Brit soldier is a dead one. Burn, old fella, burn." That was alongside a picture of the late Captain Tom. Kelly had just a couple of hundred followers on Twitter at the time, and the tweet was deleted after 20 minutes. But for this one distasteful post, that was online for 1/3 of 1 hour, Kelly was wrung through the courts for a year and a half. He was finally sentenced in March 2022. The judge said, except he was wrong. He did not anticipate what would happen. He took steps almost immediately to delete the tweet, but the genie was out of the bottle by then. His level of criminality was a drunken post at a time when he was struggling emotionally, which he regretted and almost instantly removed. Nevertheless, Kelly was sentenced to 150 hours of unpaid work and 18 months of supervision. He'd fallen foul of the grossly offensive test under the Communications Act 2003. Elsewhere in England in 2018, Paul Bassetti attended a bonfire night party at a friend's house. Some guests brought effigies, including a cardboard model of Grenfell Tower, to burn. Among other offensive and topical effigies, Bassetti filmed the burning of Grenfell Tower with his phone, and then later that evening sent the video to 2 private WhatsApp groups, one with 14 friends, the other containing 6. Well, the video of the burning cardboard was then forwarded on and made its way to social media. By April 2019, Bassetti was charged with sending or causing to be sent grossly offensive material under that same Communications Act 2003. By August 2019, Bassetti was acquitted at Westminster Magistrates Court, but the Crown Prosecution Service appealed, and his acquittal was quashed by the High Court. In April 2022, he was back at Westminster Magistrates Court, pleading guilty this time. After 4 years of being put through the legal ringer, he was handed a 10-week suspended jail sentence for filming a video of cardboard in his own back garden. Well, these are just instances that became national news stories. When the pressure group Big Brother Watch ran a campaign on Section 127 back in 2013, they found that from November 2010 to November 2013, 2,666 charges had been brought under Section 127 of the Communications Act, with 1,236 cautions handing out too. So that's 2.5 charges and 1 caution each and every day. Police involvement and court time simply for people being offensive online. Now the government is making it worse. To their credit, the previous government could see that Section 127 of the Communications Act was particularly bad legislation. At the very least, outdated legislation, drawn up before an age of social media, before online communication became less like putting up posters around your local community and more like any conversation you might have down at the pub. Now, while I've been a fierce critic of the Online Safety Act, I can recognise elements of that behemoth were actually designed to make things marginally better. Most notably, it contained within it provisions for the wider repeal of Section 127 of the Communications Act. Yes, the Online Safety Act introduces new criminal offences around harmful, false and threatening communications designed to be more specific and less widely interpretable than the grossly offensive test of the 2003 Act. The Online Safety Act commensurately gave the Science and Technology Secretary powers to repeal those parts of the Communications Act, those parts that were responsible for all of those legal cases we've been going through. But you'll never guess what happened so far. Yes, the government has of course enacted the replacement regulations contained in the Online Safety Act, those bringing new restrictions on threatening communications, that's outlawing messages that convey serious threat of serious harm, harmful communications, that's outlawing messages where the sender intends to cause psychological harm to serious distress, and false communications, that's outlawing messages which convey information that the person knows to be false. Now, the first of these is clearly justified in my view, but there's more of a Mott and Bailey tactic perhaps being used for the others, a reasonable first point, the Mott, before retreating up to the Bailey for the harder to defend speech restrictions. Who gets to define what messages cause psychological harm? And should lying on the internet really be illegal? But whatever you think of those new restrictions on the Online Safety Act, they're a world of improvement compared to the Communications Act restrictions they were designed to replace. But notice my phrasing there. Designed to replace. That's past tense because they haven't replaced Section 127. So far, they've just added to the pages and pages of speech law stifling the United Kingdom. The Science and Technology Secretary has the power to, at any time, commence the repeal of the grossly offensive parts of Section 127 using a statutory instrument. Those powers under the Online Safety Act could be enacted with the stroke of a pen. This would mean no more arresting people purely for offensive jokes. Strangely, however, the government is dragging its feet. Why have they not yet repealed Section 127. After all, those new offences were meant to replace Section 127. Britain doesn't have free speech. Today we face more legislative restrictions on our speech than we have seen in decades. The government could make things freer without even passing any more legislation, just with that stroke of that very pen. Strangely, it has thus far chosen not to. Perhaps our dishonest Prime Minister ought to reflect on these facts the next time he claims we have a long history of free speech in this country, that he claims that he's very proud of that free speech history, and when he claims he'll defend that free speech. Perhaps that is the most offensive joke of all. Well, what do you make of that? Do use your free speech to comment down in that comment section below and let us know how you feel this government is getting on with its restrictions around what people are allowed to say, particularly online. Do click that subscribe button as well as we follow the twists and turns of this peculiar speech restriction story in the United Kingdom.